No technological advances are required for us to go and colonise Mars. To visit Mars first and then colonise it. We have the technology now. Mars it's actually the only planet, other than the Earth, that we will ever colonise.
Have you ever wondered what NASA's rovers might be hiding on the red planet? What if, during one of their routine missions, they captured something that doesn't look like a rock, a shadow, or even a camera glitch, but something far more mysterious? Now imagine this happening just as a strange interstellar object, 3I Atlas, moves past Mars, stirring up questions scientists can't fully answer. Coincidence or something more? Keep watching as we uncover the story of the UFO spotted on Mars just as 3I Atlas made its close approach.
We found a sample, and it was, again, we're exploring in places where there were rivers and where there were lakes, and much as on Earth, we think that that's where we'd see signs of ancient life on Mars.
Mars is a strange place. It's not Earth, but it isn't just a dead rock either. In many ways, it's a mosaic, frozen, battered, and altered, but one that still whispers of what might have been, and what might yet exist beneath its surface or in its past. Let me walk you through its geography, its history, the speculations about aliens, and what stands in the way, and in favor, of supporting life there. Mars sits fourth from the Sun, a cold desert world with a red tint caused by iron oxides scattered across its surface. Its diameter is about 6,790 kilometers, which is a little over half Earth's diameter. Because of that smaller size, its gravity at the surface is weaker, roughly 0.375 g, or about 37.5% of Earth's gravity. The total surface area of Mars is almost equal to the land surface area of Earth, if you ignore Earth's oceans, giving Mars nearly 144.8 million square kilometers of ground to explore. The atmosphere is extremely thin. It's mostly carbon dioxide, but its pressure is only on the order of 0.6 kilopascals, or approximately 0.6% of Earth's atmospheric pressure at sea level. That means that liquid water at the surface is unstable except under unusual conditions. The temperature swings are brutal. Midday near the equator might warm a little, but nights plunge to minus 100 degrees Celsius or lower, even minus 125 degrees Celsius in places. The planet has seasons, since its axis is tilted approximately 25 degrees similarly to Earth's, and it has polar ice caps that change in size with the seasons. The North Polar Cap region, Planum Boreum, covers about 800,000 square kilometers, and in places, the ice can be nearly 3 kilometers thick. Its volume is estimated between 1.2 to 1.7 million cubic kilometers. If you look at Mars from top to bottom, one of the first things you see is a stark contrast between its two hemispheres. The southern hemisphere is heavily cratered, old, rugged, the highlands. The northern hemisphere is lower, smoother, less cratered, the lowlands. On average, the elevation difference between the two hemispheres is about 6 kilometers, 3.7 miles. Many scientists believe that environmental events, volcanic resurfacing, or a large impact early on may have carved out or reshaped the northern lowlands. There are high volcanoes, big basins, deep canyons, wide plains, and chaotic, broken terrain. Olympus Mons, the largest volcano in the solar system, towers at about 22 kilometers, 13.6 miles, above its base, much taller than any mountain on Earth. The Martian Tharsis region hosts giant volcanoes and bulges in the crust that shape much of the planet's topography. The canyon system Valles Marineris stretches over 4,000 kilometers and in places is 7 kilometers deep and 200 kilometers wide. A rift canyon that dwarfs anything Earth has. There are outflow channels like Ma'adim Vallis, thought to have been carved by massive floods or flowing water in Mars's past. The Kasey Valles system spans some 1,580 kilometers and in places is hundreds of kilometers wide. Basins like Isidis Planitia record huge impacts in Mars's ancient past. In regions termed chaos terrain, the ground is fractured, full of blocks, perhaps places where water or ice once disrupted the crust. Under the surface, Mars has a layered internal structure: a crust, a mantle, and a core. Its average density suggests a rocky composition with a core of iron and nickel, though lighter elements are mixed in. It does not have a strong global magnetic field now, though there are localized crustal magnetic anomalies, signs that Mars once had a global dynamo. Recent data suggest its inner core might be solid and its outer core liquid, something closer to Earth internally. Mars's story is one of transformation, from a wetter, more active world to the cold, dry one we see today. Billions of years ago, during the Noachian era, roughly 4.1 to 3.7 billion years ago, Mars likely had a thicker atmosphere, more greenhouse warming, and liquid water on the surface. Rivers, lakes, even seas may have existed. Past hydrothermal systems on the seafloor are estimated to date to about 3.7 billion years ago. Those could resemble environments on Earth that hosted early life. Some studies push the duration of habitability even longer than previously assumed. But over time, Mars lost that thick atmosphere. Solar wind, radiation, and lack of a magnetic shield stripped it away, reducing its ability to hold onto heat and water. As that atmosphere thinned, water either froze, was lost to space, or was trapped underground as ice or briny liquid. Newer findings keep reshaping this narrative. As of this year, high-resolution images have revealed about 10,000 miles of ancient riverbeds in southern highlands, evidence of widespread surface water flow long ago. That suggests watery periods may have been more pervasive than earlier imagined, and radar data reveal possible liquid water trapped under the south polar ice cap, a stable body beneath approximately 20 kilometers of layered deposits. Now let's turn our attention to the claims and stories about UFOs seen on or around Mars, what people are saying, what evidence is offered, and what more mundane explanations there are. We'll stick with what's known, what's speculative, and how reliable it seems. Stories of UFO-like objects on Mars often begin with images taken by rovers or orbiters. Many times what looks weird is simply odd lighting, shadows, sensor errors, or layers of rock that form shapes people interpret as something alive or artificial. One well-known example is from the Korea Times, where an amateur specialist claimed to have spotted what looks like a mouse in a photo from Mars, specifically in the Gale crater, in an image taken by the Curiosity rover. The person pointed to what seemed to be large ears, eyes, a nose, features that human perception tends to seek even in random arrangements. NASA responds that those are cases of pareidolia, the tendency to see familiar patterns where none were intentionally made. There are also reports of more dramatic UFO sighting claims. One recent example, online UFO enthusiast sources pointed at a tic-tac-shaped smooth pale object in NASA Curiosity images, floating or casting a shadow. The thing looked too smooth and oddly shaped, so many jumped to the idea of an alien craft. But there is no scientific confirmation that it is anything more than a rock or artifact of image processing. Another claim is of strange lights in the sky of Mars, in photos taken by rovers. An image taken by Curiosity's Navcam on April 3, 2014, shows a bright spot in the sky. UFO buffs picked up the image, arguing it might represent a light source from underground or some artificial element. NASA offered more prosaic explanations, either reflection, sun glint, or a cosmic ray hitting the sensor, or a defect pixel artifact in the camera. These kinds of bright anomalies are common in raw camera images from Mars. Some reports are more complex. For example, a video sent to the debrief claimed to show two separate UFOs photographed by Perseverance hanging in the skies of Mars. NASA responded that those are probably fakes or fan-made manipulations of images, rather than actual unknown objects. Then there are supposed crashed UFO claims. One image from 2006 taken by Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter seems to show something half buried in soil, with a streak behind it forming something like a disk with a ramp or streak. That theory was proposed by a researcher digging through archived MRO images, but those claims are entirely speculative. No scientific publications support the idea that it's anything other than a geological formation, or debris, or a trick of light and angle. A recurring theme, most UFOs on Mars are either shapes in rocks that look familiar, faces, animals, disks, or bits of hardware that detached, or simply visual artifacts, sensor noise, dust specks, cosmic rays, etc. For example, in one story that got popular, a UFO-like object was shown in an image by the Perseverance rover. It turned out to be the backshell/heat shield component that separated during landing. It's human hardware rather than alien. Let's consider how strong the evidence is. None of these claims has been verified by peer-reviewed science as proof of alien technology. Most are internet posts, amateur analyses, or sensational news articles. The quality of images often is low or ambiguous. Objects that people interpret as flying saucers may simply be rocks with smooth surfaces, lighting giving them odd shadows, or perhaps image compression or camera artifacts. NASA and other space agencies often say that when images show something unusual, the most likely explanations are mundane. Dust, cosmic ray hits on detectors, glints of light off surfaces, shadows, erosion patterns, or rocks that just happen to look familiar. Human perception is good at finding shapes that look like eyes, faces, animals, machines. Our brains are wired that way. So many UFO claims on Mars fall apart when higher resolution images or slightly different angles show the object is just a boulder or rock outcrop. Now let's turn our attention to one of the most talked about Mars UFO stories in recent years, the so-called Tic Tac UFO that sent social media and alien hunters into overdrive. The image in question comes from NASA's Curiosity rover, taken on Sol 2692, which corresponds to March 3, 2020. A Reddit user first spotted what appeared to be a small, perfectly smooth, white, elongated object sitting, or perhaps floating, above the Martian surface. They claimed it was shaped just like the famous Tic Tac UFO, seen by U.S. Navy pilots off the coast of California in 2004. Within hours of posting, the image spread across dozens of UFO forums, news outlets, and YouTube channels. The object, as seen in the NASA archive image, seems unnaturally smooth compared to the rocky terrain around it. It casts a subtle shadow on the reddish soil, which made it look like it had real three-dimensional presence rather than being a camera glitch. Some users took the photo and ran it through AI enhancement filters to boost resolution, and the result made it look even stranger. A glossy, capsule-shaped structure, pale in color, almost hovering above the ground. To people inclined to believe in extraterrestrial life, it looked like proof. The comparison with the U.S. Navy's Tic Tac UFO was instant. That craft, described by Commander David Fravor in 2004, was also smooth, white, featureless, and capable of incredible movement without visible propulsion. So naturally, many wondered if what the Curiosity rover saw on Mars was connected to the same kind of object, perhaps even the same technology. As the Reddit post gained traction, the thread filled with thousands of comments. Some insisted that if NASA revisited the location and the object was gone, then it must have been alien. Others said that if it remained, it could still be the weirdest rock formation in the solar system. A few users suggested it might be a remnant of past NASA equipment or debris from the rover itself, though the smooth symmetry of the shape made that unlikely theory less convincing to them. NASA didn't issue any official statement about this particular image, but scientists familiar with Mars photography explained that these odd shapes are not unusual. The Curiosity rover's mast cam has a tendency to create compression artifacts, especially in areas with stark lighting contrasts. Dust particles on the lens, cosmic rays hitting the sensor, or even reflections from metallic rover components can produce shapes that appear smooth and out of place. These explanations don't sound exciting, but they fit what engineers have seen many times before. In fact, similar floating or hovering rocks have been found in earlier rover images. And later, when viewed from slightly different angles, they turn out to be part of natural ridges, rock outcrops, or shadows. Still, the idea of a tic-tac UFO on Mars stuck because of timing. In 2023, global discussion about UFOs reached a new peak when former U.S. intelligence officer David Grush testified before Congress, claiming the government was hiding information about non-human craft recovery programs. Around the same time, Mexico displayed alleged alien bodies in its own congressional hearing. Governments across the world, from the U.S. to Japan, were acknowledging that they had unidentified aerial phenomena UAP reports they could not explain. So, when an image from Mars suddenly showed something shaped just like the Navy's Tic Tac, it hit the public imagination hard. The online narrative connected dots that probably shouldn't have been connected, but it shows how people think. If a Tic Tac-like craft was seen on Earth by fighter pilots and now something similar appeared on Mars, then, to believers, this wasn't coincidence. It meant continuity. They argued that perhaps these crafts operate both in Earth's atmosphere and space, maybe even across planets. Some even said that Mars might serve as a kind of parking zone for these objects, a base where they land, study, or refuel before visiting other worlds. Of course, these are speculations without evidence, but they dominate discussions in UFO communities. Others took a more skeptical but still curious angle. They pointed out that the size of the object was never determined. The Curiosity rover doesn't have depth sensors that can measure distance from a single frame, so no one knows whether the object was a few centimeters wide or several meters long. That means what looks like a ship could easily be a small rock. The shadow that seems to make it float could be a trick of light hitting uneven terrain. Lighting on Mars can be harsh. With a thin atmosphere, sunlight scatters differently than on Earth. Shadows stretch long and contrast sharply, so flat shapes can look raised or hovering. The data we get will be coarse, and distinguishing a nucleus from dust coma will be tough. The 30 kilometers per pixel estimate for high-rise images means individual features on the object would be tiny or blurred. Moreover, the tail in coma may mask structural features. The fact that 3I Atlas is already showing typical cometary behavior undercuts stronger claims that it's purely artificial. So far, no credible data has been reported that ties 3I Atlas directly to Mars in any physical or interaction sense. There are no observations of anomalies on Mars that correlate exactly with its passage. There is no confirmed exchange of energy, radiation signature, or change in Mars's environment attributable to 3I Atlas. All that connects them is timing, trajectory proximity, and speculation. So thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next video.